Good morning. This is Bill Pierce from Widener University, SBDC. And we're here today to talk about international trade in an internet business. This is a presentation that I did back in September. We're repeating it because some people couldn't attend at that point, and I've got a lot of people contacted me, and we're hoping to be able to join. Everybody who registered will be receiving a copy of the presentation as well as a video of the discussion. We'll be getting that out to you when we're done. My goal today is to really pump you up on your interest in starting an international business via the internet. It's a great topic. It's very current. There's huge opportunity here. And I'm really hoping to get you excited. So let's have a little fun today. Please ask questions. Let us know what your thoughts are. If you have, if you're in process to starting a company and you have thoughts or ideas, I'm on, and I have a guest speaker who's on, Tony Pugh from the U.S. Commerce Service is on, and we'll be more than happy to break away and help you with the session. The presentation probably takes less than an hour. We're scheduled for an hour and a half, so we'll have time afterwards, but I will be asking for questions as we go along. So let's get into this. Let's have some fun, and let's talk about a great business opportunity for many of you. All right, I gotta get my buttons going. Okay, so before we start, just a quick introduction. Widener University SBDC is part of the SBDC network in the state of Pennsylvania. We provide consulting and educational programs for small businesses in the for-profit sector. That's our primary focus, but there's lots of resources through about 19 educational centers throughout the state, and there's even a larger network nationally that we can get the resources from. So we have some capabilities to really provide some top-notch help to people that are starting a business, people are in a business, or even people that are looking to retire and move off from their business. We can provide help and assistance. We're supported by the SBA. That's our primary contributor, but also the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, and also the PrEP program in southeastern Pennsylvania, and of course, Widener University. We provide a number of different programs. We are a center of excellence for health and life science. We have a specialist in that area. We're also a center of excellence for the Latino community. We have people who specialize in that area. We are a SAP Next Gen lab, which means we have a lot of special tools that we can work with to help you with your business. And we even have a PTAC center to assist us with government contracting and things like that. And if you're looking for environmental assistance, we can also provide that through the EMAP program in the state of Pennsylvania. All right, I gotta keep clicking on this thing. Okay. We have a wide variety of consultants. You'll see a really handsome guy forth from the left there. But we have people that specialize in helping find money, government contracting, real estate, healthcare, general business consulting, and also technology commercialization and developing growth strategies. So we can cover a wide range of topics. If we can't do it, as I said, there's 18 other centers in the state of Pennsylvania that can. So we can cover a wide range. There are other universities that specialize in other fields. So if you're in one of those fields, we can always get you connected up with an expert at another facility, or we can work through it and use them as a resource. All right, so why are we here today? This is what I want to talk about. Why international trade? It's a really great question that's been asked for a long time. There's evidence that international trade has probably been going on for about 5,000 years. There's a belief that the migrations that occurred hundreds of thousands of years ago probably occurred in part because of the need for new and different supplies, new and different things. And as a result, the trade was set up. But I love this map on the right-hand side here. Even in the first century, people were already traveling from a center of influence like Rome to the far east coast of China, to Beijing, and down the coast, the eastern coast of Africa, 5,000 miles. These trips would take about a year, let's say 8 months to a year, depending on the weather. And they were carrying anywhere from 150 to 250 pounds of supplies. Being that a tractor trailer today can carry 20 tons, that was quite a small load and quite a long distance, a lot of time to get there. But they set up networks, and you can see there's regions throughout the area where people knew where to go to get specific things that were desirable, but not available in the areas they lived. And that's still true today, okay? If you look at international trade, we have, it offers a lot of benefits, more clients, new and different business opportunities, economic diversification, which basically says if things are tough in the US, they may be very solid in China, and that's what's going on today, okay? If you have excess capacity, it's a great way to use excess capacity. And also you can use it to protect your domestic business. And I'll talk about that a little bit later in a different form. But fundamentally, ideas that are generated in the US, there really is no control. That same idea won't develop somewhere else. And if somebody else is developing that idea and you're trying to develop that idea, it is a risk here in your home market that somebody could import back into the US the same thing that you're manufacturing today. So being in the international trade sector, you can know and understand that. Last but not least, and this is really, really important, it creates a dynamic workforce. In today's economy, people love to be able to have a ability to communicate internationally. Our populations, certainly here in the U.S., are very diverse now, and people, are looking for opportunities to communicate in areas that they're comfortable with, and they can use skills, language skills, cultural skills, in the workplace, and it will allow you to recruit more effectively. The important takeaway is that exporters outperform non-exporters in profitability over time, and that's really why we're doing this presentation today, and we're talking about it specifically in the area of the internet because it really does provide a very simple way to get into this business. So what do you need to do this? First, you're going to need some sort of management commitment or personal commitment. You will need a product or service experience, and I'll talk about that a little bit more detail. There is some cash flow needs, but there are ways to handle that I can talk about. Capacity and capability, and you're going to need a plan. And I'm going to talk about plans a lot as we go through the presentation, because getting into international without a plan is it's probably not going to be effective. So we're here to help you develop plans. So if you need a plan, certainly Widener SBDC, the U.S. Commercial Service are here to help you. But you have plenty of help available. The U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, the various offices in the government, the SBA, the Census, and my all-time favorite is the U.S. Commerce Service. And we have on the phone today Tony Pugh from the U.S. Commerce Service. Tony, can you say hi? Oh, maybe his microphone.
Thanks, Bill.
There he is.
Sorry, I couldn't join you all today over video. I am speaking over on my phone that we have some technology restrictions. So, but very happy to join you, and thanks to those who can join today. But thanks, and also thanks to Bill in Widener SBDC for being a wonderful partner to help to create this ecosystem of international trade resources that are available to you. So as Bill said, I'm one of the trade specialists with Commercial Service Philadelphia. Commercial Service Philadelphia is within that federal maze under International Trade Administration, under Department of Commerce. So we are part of the federal government, and we have domestic offices in the states, in all the major cities where our office is in Philadelphia. And then overseas, we're based at the U.S. embassies and U.S. consulates. So they're our feet on the ground, our ears on the ground, to help you understand whether there's, what a market for you, helping you with your go-to-market strategies, whether it's, vetting, identifying partners, connecting with partners, and helping you to promote your product in that market. And I also mentioned for those who are looking at foreign government tenders, we also have an advocacy office. If you're looking to bid on a foreign government tender, that we have a office in DC that will collaborate with you to, on what the best course of action is to make sure you have a level playing field when you are bidding. And even in the pre-tender announcement, if there's something coming down the pike, we can also help you as well, as long as there's foreign competition. So getting to back on subject, the service I wanted to mention we have is called the Website Globalization Review Gap Analysis Service. So basically that's a report, but beyond the report, it's us counseling on your digital strategy. So understanding, where you're at with your website and how to improve that. So that WGR Gap Analysis Report does two things. One is to evaluate your website from an international marketing sales perspective. So looking at your site, whether it's internationalized, right? So the aesthetics, the design, the functionality, things like is it easy to navigate, the page structure, things like that, to make sure that your international audience is able to that's attractive and clear to your audience. The second part of that report is the website SEO, the search engine optimization. And for that part, it's to make sure that your website is appealing and functional for international customers. And so through that SEO, we include two reports, two SEO reports. One is called the SEO Site Checkup, which runs a series of tests on what SEO issues you might have on your site. And then the MOZ report, MOZ report, which audits your site for any issues that may impact your SERP or your search engine results page or rankings. So MOZ report is very technical. It looks at they're the industry or the company that created the domain authority score. So that's basically how likely your website is to rank on a search engine results page. So we look at the technicals and see how you pit up with your main competitors. And then finally, just after the report, we still are there to make sure that you're doing the strategy within your plan. So making sure that you're looking at this at a bigger picture level, understanding your e-commerce sales channels. Are you working with distributors? Maybe you're doing something on online marketplaces, making sure that you have the right resources to make an effective plan. So that's it from me. Feel free to reach out with any questions, and I'm going to be staying on for the entire session. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Tony. Great job. Kay, you have a question. We're going to get to questions here in a second. So I'll bring your question up here in a second. All right. So real quick, well, not real quick. I think this is important. There's really a couple of things you have to recognize in global trade that are challenges. Certainly the global market by itself has its fair share of challenges. Things like language, culture, and customs. There's kind of two trains of thought when I get involved with new clients on importing and exporting. One is that everything should be the same when they go to other places. And the other one is everything won't be anywhere close, so therefore it's a lot of work. Neither one of those is really true. But there is globalization going on, as Tony mentioned, and some of these things are starting to, we'll say, close gaps. And there are ways, and I'm going to talk about all of them, to work through these kind of things. But there's also rules and regulations and taxes that are different in other parts of the world than they are here today, than they are here in the US. When you specifically get into importing and exporting, there's actually a lot of things you have to take into account, like currencies, payments, deliveries, product protection, and I'll talk about that both physically and intellectually, and also returns and warranties. Imagine shipping something to a remote place in India, getting paid, and then having it not operate or not meet the satisfaction. It's a little tough to deal with that. But we'll talk about that as we go forward. Sometimes it works. Okay. But the message I want to give you is you can do this. If this is something you're interested in, you can do this. There's lots of people here to help you, as Tony mentioned, as I mentioned, but you're going to need a plan. And really that's the next step that many of you should have as you go forward. So questions, we have a couple up here and let me get to them. First one, Tony, is from Kay, and move forward here, go back, is from Kay, and it says, does the Department of Commerce do something similar to WGR for domestic websites? I'm not sure if I know what. Okay, what's WGR? Can you type that in?
Is that the website globalization review service?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. The one you just, okay.
Well, yes. Absolutely. Yeah. No. We do this for domestic websites. I mean, if I guess if it's domestic versus international website, in that the international website is like a distributor's website, we would still look at that. So if it's your company's website, we can take a look at that with this service.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay. So the answer K is yes. All right. There's some more questions up here now. Let's see. All right. All right. I think, well, let's see here. My mouse isn't helping me here. All right. Not quite sure why the Q&A is not working. Zach, can you look at the Q&A and see if you can figure out why that's not working?
Yes, I just sent a message to Francine. She was just asking if we would receive the slides.
If we would, yes, everybody will receive the slides. That's correct. So, okay. All right. That's those are the questions. Let's move on then. Okay. Before we go further though, I wanted to run a quick poll here. And let's go ahead. Can you see that poll? Can everybody see the poll? You know, what I'm looking for here is, let me relaunch it here. Get the relaunch button. All right, everybody are now viewing the questions. If you could just tell us whether you're primarily in an import business, an export business, thinking about starting one, or just came because you heard the speaker was really exceptional. Got one person starting. Got some people already importing, 2 people starting. One person, my mom voted for the speakers exceptional. Thank you. Thanks, Mom. 2 people. That must be my sister. Okay, very good. Well, that's a big help. So a lot of people are thinking about getting started. Most people are thinking about getting started. We have somebody already getting started, and some people just want to hear what we have to say. So that's great. Thank you. Close that. All right. So a little bit more on the internet side of global trade. And again, I know the title of this presentation is international trade. I'll speak about it as global trade. That's just a little bit easier for me as I go through some of this stuff, because most of the context that we get into really talks about it in terms of global trade. You know, the first key fact is that 95% of the e-commerce market is outside the USA. Now, the USA basically invented the e-commerce market, you know, whether it be Amazon or whether it be companies that allowed you to order things online, you know, 25, 30 years ago, which you could do 25 or 30 years ago. But, you know, the US market really has become pretty saturated in e-commerce. And I'll share with you some data in a second that shows why it's very important. Every day, about 1.8 billion people, every year, about 1.8 billion individuals globally purchase something on the internet. That's about 1/3 of the global population. And global B2C B2B and P2P, which peer-to-peer, which is eBay, which is growing at about 12% clip. Okay. But it's not growing at a 12% clip in the United States. It's growing at a 12% clip in the US, which means there's more growth for e-commerce outside the US than there is inside the US. And let's talk about why that could be. Well, first off, a lot of it has to do with access to the internet. And you can see at the graph at the bottom that the US and Europe are pretty saturated. North America and Europe are pretty saturated already in terms of access to the internet. So obviously, they have more capabilities to do this. But areas like Africa and Asia, and also the Middle East to some degree, Latin America, have the ability for more people to have access to the internet in time. And that's what's going to continue to drive people to be able to do more e-commerce in these other areas. And that's one of the reasons why you want to be able to do e-commerce globally, is because you want to be able to catch these people as they come into the market. The US share of e-commerce is declining. One, it's saturated, as I said, and two, it's slower growth. There's a larger growth for commerce in Asia and Africa. And as people become, as the internet becomes more available in those two regions, you're going to see huge growth in e-commerce. So there is a growing market that's outside the US. And that's why when we talk about this opportunity, it's a great idea to start looking outside the US to see if you can market your same product you market in the US outside the US. Okay, another slide that kind of reinforces this, and I thought this was fascinating. Of the 30 million companies that are in the US, only about 1% export, and about half of those export only to Canada, Mexico, and the Caribbean. A 0.5% of all the commerce that's done by companies in the US goes to places like Asia or even Europe or South America. So there's a huge opportunity to be able to increase that. One of the pushes in the federal government right now is to push exporting, get companies to do more exporting because the market is there. And then also by pushing exporting from the US to other countries, we increase manufacturing in the US, create good jobs. So that's one of the reasons why we're talking about this today. It is a very good thing for not only you, but it's a great thing for the US economy. E-commerce accounts for about 12% of global physical goods trades. For those of you who don't know, in the United States in 2019, I think it was March, e-commerce passed brick and mortar commerce as the primary mode for people to shop. And globally, it's not quite there yet. But it will get there eventually. And again, it's growing at such a rate that could easily happen by 2030, that e-commerce is the dominant shopping mode globally in all phases of business. E-commerce sales are expected to exceed $6 trillion by 2023, which, that's just amazing fact. And you can see the growth on the graph to the right-hand side there. So it's a huge opportunity for you. And I want to talk through how you can do it and the different ways you can go about getting this business set up. If you're gonna export, so I talked about product before. If you're gonna export, let me fix some here. All right, give me a second. I'm close these blinds. I wasn't expecting this. Okay, so if you're going to export, you really do need to have a product, okay? Now, most people, that are in business today have something they're selling, whether that be a product or a service. When you go global, though, it changes just a little bit, all right? So where in the US, we like to talk about new and improved. Globally, you really want to talk about unique or limited local alternatives. What you'll find when you do exporting is if there is a local alternative that's not quite as good, but essentially does the same thing, that will be your competition. There are places in the world where incomes are rising and people are looking for more customized goods. And I will tell you that Made in America is an extremely valuable tool, but you have to get to the point where they can afford it. So the next bucket here is getting the price low enough in the US is important, but in the global market, you're looking at affordability. One of the examples, I love this site. If you buy a medium Coke at McDonald's, you're going to spend well over $1. If you go to McDonald's in Shanghai, it's probably closer to 50 cents. If you go to McDonald's in Bangalore, India, it's closer to 25 cents. So Coca-Cola prices a product to the affordability of the market and matching the needs. Now, that doesn't mean that price won't go up over time as people acquire more income and have more capability to spend. But affordability is very important for a global product. If they can't afford it, they won't buy it. All right. On time and prompt delivery and service in the US is very important. You're not going to be able to provide that globally. It takes time to ship. If you have a warranty issue, people will have to be patient about it. It's not going to happen overnight like it does here. You just don't take it back to the store. So you have to have effective communication is much more important. And people understand that globally. Okay. And then last but not least, the product reputation versus product information. Word of mouth really is not going to help you much in a global market, but people globally, because they're making a tough decision in many cases, really want to learn as much about the product as possible. So when you create your websites, when you create your internet access, social media access to global markets, you really want to focus on the product information and giving them as much information about the product so they can understand what they're buying and why they're buying it and how it's going to help them. Bottom line, though, your product has to be able to stand out to be purchased globally. I'll say this again. You have an advantage with Made in America. You have an advantage in that the innovation and the things, many cases we take for granted here in the US today are just not available globally. And if we can make them available and we can make them available on an affordable basis in the market, you can be successful with the products you have today. Let's see. I don't know why my screen's not working right. There we go. Okay. So another thing that you need to understand about your product is what is the consumer side of your product? And one of the tools that's available to you in the state of Pennsylvania through the SBDC network, Widener, and the other SBDCs is the ability to do free market research. And you should do this, okay? Things you need to understand is consumer preferences and needs, commercial and technical standards, requirements, country of origin. Again, I will tell you Made in America is very valuable, okay? But there are places that it may not be viewed positively, and you have to be careful about that. Instructions for use, putting them in the right languages is very important. How people will want to receive the delivery, all right? Packaging, shelf life, and safety. Recognize that if you put something on a boat, it may not make it onto a shelf for 30 to 60 days. Is your product going to be able to do that? And it leads you to a question about whether the product you want to export, whether you want to standardize it or you want to adapt it to the market. So this market research opportunity that's available to you through the SBDCs can help you answer those kind of questions and really frame out the best way to take your product to a specific market. All right, so that's something you can contact Widener and we can get you set up. It really is a simple process, and there are a lot of resources in the state through a variety of different subscriptions and also resources that can be used to do this market research. But this is one of the things you really have to do to make sure you understand how your product is going to be accepted in the other region. Another thing is currency and payment. Okay, this is a great statement from Jimmy Duval. For those who don't know, Jimmy Duval is the Chief Product Officer at Big Commerce. Big Commerce is probably the largest online pay-for company in the world. This is what he said: if a merchant won't allow consumers to use currencies or payment methods with which they are familiar, customers are likely to find sellers who will. So I have a lot of experience in China. In fact, I'll give some examples. My wife is also Chinese. She does a lot of work exporting back to China. She buys costume jewelry in the U.S. and exports that to China. One of the challenges you face is that she has to receive payment in RMB, the Chinese currency. Now, that's okay for us because she has a Chinese bank account and she has the ability to do things with the money in the Chinese bank account. So she can receive the money in China, use it in other ways, and it works out fine. But for us, for you or for myself or anybody else who wants to get into China, you have to recognize that people may want to pay you in local currency. They may want to pay you with apps that you're not familiar with, like Alipay. And we've heard a lot about Alipay in the news lately. But Alipay is the biggest e-commerce payment method in China, and it's becoming one of the largest in the world. If you go and you want to use Facebook for payment in China, you can't do it because Facebook is a banned social media site, so you can't do it. So when you're looking at currency and payments, you have to look at things like, your point of sale. Can you take credit cards? Can you take virtual currency? And which ones can you take? Things like letters of credit that we can talk about separately. Collect on delivery is another way you can do it if you have an agent that's facilitating that transaction. Open accounts, you can certainly send something to somebody and hope they'll pay you, but that's risky. And then there's all kinds of financing tools out there that you can use to finance a shipment and get your money back that way. And again, depending on what you're doing, the currency you do it in may either help you or hurt you. Okay. But there's a lot of people that can help you. Banks, your bank can help you. Export-import agents, a transaction services company. I had a lady on a panel 2 weeks ago, and she does trade credit, and she makes sure that somebody can take this policy out and assure they're going to get paid through her company if the customer chooses not to pay. You can do this through the marketplace if you use a third-party marketplace, or you can buy export-import insurance either through this trade credit route that I mentioned, or there's actually a bank that's set up called the U.S. Export-Import Bank that provides that service also. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but again, it's something you'll have to understand before you get into it, and it's part of the plan that you're going to have to develop. Kind of the evil side of this whole presentation is the next one, and that's product and knowledge theft. Okay. One of the risks you have in exporting your product is it could become relabeled and sold locally by somebody who can make it. It could just be outright pirated, or components of it could be reverse engineered and used in other ways, or it could be counterfeited. And counterfeiting would be just basically making the same product and saying it was the same thing when in reality it's not. So these situations are not exclusive to any particular region. We have them here in the U.S. They actually exist in the U.S. also. But in some regions, they're actually cultural norms. There really is a cultural norm that says, if I can make it, why can't I sell it? Even though somebody has already invented it, spent the money, developed it, and those kind of things. So there is some cultural norms in some regions that really inhibit our ability to be able to manage this. It's certainly a financial and liability risk. Imagine if you start exporting your product, somebody counterfeits it and markets it, what their version of it. And next thing you know, you're getting complaints, you're getting phone calls, maybe even getting people filing complaints against you, and you find out it's not even your product, but that can happen. The legal environment on this is very fuzzy, so product and knowledge theft protection has to be an element of your global trade plan. Okay. Here's a good example. I love this example, but whether you want to argue about this or not, one of our national heritage is McDonald's. It is a global name. It exists everywhere that I've ever been, including 4 or 5 continents. You can buy McDonald's in India. You can buy McDonald's in Europe. You can buy McDonald's in South America, Brazil. You can buy McDonald's just about everywhere in the world. And it's, it is our national heritage. It's a great company, and they've done a great job expanding. But one of the problems they face, because they're so well known, is theft. And in China, you may see a little sign that's called Mini Burger, same arches. Okay. And it is absolutely implied. Don't even think they're not trying to pretend that they're not the McDonald's of hot dogs in China. And what I found even more interesting is that it was copied in Iran. And we hear every day about how much Iran hates us. But sure enough, there's a McDonald's that's making Iranian hamburgers for the Iranian population. So, this is very common. It's something you'll have to face, and you'll have to plan for this as you set your business up. All right. So questions. Let's see if I can get this to work now. All right. We got something in the chat. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Patel. Appreciate the fact we're good speakers. Zach, is there any chance you can see this Q&A? For some reason, when I click on it, nothing happens.
Yeah, it was just someone answering the poll that was earlier.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. All right, is there any other questions at this point? All right, so we talked about why this is a great opportunity. We talked about the things you have to do to be able to do it. Now I'm going to talk about how to do it, and we'll get into some of the things that Tony has actually already started to talk about. All right, so I love this. I love this graphic. I wish I would have developed it, but it just is absolutely a terrific way to look at this. Okay, there really is 4, and you can even make an argument there's 5, but I like the graphics. So I'll stay with the 4 stages that you're going to go through when you're trying to get your internet-based international trade business going. Stage 1 is market research, and I talked about that. And you have a lot of support and capability in the state of Pennsylvania through Widener. If you want to export and look at specific regions, we can get that work done for you to help you define your product and better understand how your product will fit in a specific region. Okay. Once you do your market research, now you have something to sell. And this is where you get into your promotional stage. Okay. And this is creating product knowledge. So this would be advertising. And I'll talk about how that can be done. But really getting the word out into the market that you've selected or region you selected, really is an important stage, creating that knowledge. And again, as I said before, why does somebody want your product? Okay, recognizing that they may not speak the same language, they may not have the same culture, they may have other reasons, whether they be religious, sometimes comes into bear. What is it you want them to know about your product? Okay. And again, product information forms are a very valuable tool in exporting. So a lot of websites will have the product, the picture of the product. But when they get to when you get into the website, they'll have a great deal of product information that people can actually do research and understand better the product, because you may know it and it may be well known in the U.S. in the U.S. or North American markets, but it won't necessarily be known the same way globally. And you have to help educate people. Okay. The next one is really interesting. Okay, this is really where you're getting down into the funnel and you're trying to get to the place where people are going to buy your product. Okay, and we call this educating. But in global markets, these inquiry forms that we all hate are very popular in international markets. People want to get more information. So a strategy could be that you provide sufficient information when you're creating your product knowledge, and then provide an inquiry sheet where somebody can ask you specific questions. And you have to be able to respond to those questions in a quick and timely manner. Okay. It's a simple interaction, but I can tell you, because of the desire to learn more about products, that inquiry forms are much more commonly used in international internet trade than they are in the US, where maybe you could go to Best Buy, for example, and look and touch and feel the product and buy it at Amazon. That's not as common in the global market. So therefore, people do have a lot of questions. And these inquiry forms are one way for people to become educated. So it's a very important step in terms of getting people to buy from you. If you've done a good job with all these, you've collected, you've determined the right product and how to sell it. You've created product knowledge, and you've done the education. Now, hopefully you can capture the order, and you want to have an e-commerce site that I mentioned before that has the right currencies. It has the right information for shipping. It has all the right stuff so you can capture the order. One of the things I'll talk about a little bit later is culture. And one of the examples I like to talk about is the culture for packaging in the Middle East. And this is a heritage issue. It's a religious issue. But you never want to have a person's picture on your packaging if you're marketing to the Middle East. It's not done. It's not common. It just won't be accepted. In fact, it might be viewed negatively. And anything, obviously, that's suggestive will be not denied in that market. Instead, what you really want to do is stick with blue colors. Things that have like clouds and shapes are much more popular in the Middle East. So, all these things you have to learn and educate, and then you're going to get to the point where you can get your order. But I love this graphic. I wish I would have developed it. It's a great model. Okay, so globalization considerations. Okay, and this will get us to the point where we start talking about our websites and how to go about them. But there are a lot of considerations that you have to make. Okay, language and regionalisms. Okay, in India. Well, first off, I don't know if everybody knows this, but India is the largest English-speaking country in the world. Okay, so the largest English-speaking country in the world is India. Okay, but in India, the English dialect is much different in the South than it is in the North, than it is in the East, than it is in the West, than it is in the center of the country. It simply doesn't sound the same way. The words are not the same, but it is English. And that's on top of all the local languages that you face. I was in Bangalore one time, and I go to church on Sundays, so I wanted to go to church. There are a lot of because Bangalore was really heavily British controlled. There's a lot of great churches, beautiful church buildings in Bangalore, and I wanted to go to church, so I went downstairs. I asked the lady at the front desk, I'd like to go to this church. And she said, well, sir, it's quite far away, but there's a church right across the street. Why don't you go there? So I said, okay, that's a better idea. But just because I just wasn't sure, I wanted to make sure I knew where it was and what time it started, which I would do here in the US too. I went across the street and I read the sign, and I realized that the language that they were going to speak, I didn't understand. So I had to go back in, and I had to find out how do I get to the church I wanted to go to in the first place, which provided the services in English. So, you have to think about those things, and those things are true also when you're marketing your product or your service globally. Okay. Culture and buying process. Okay. I mentioned the situation around packaging in the Middle East. Asia and how their websites work is quite similar. A Chinese website, if you went on a Chinese website, it is really crowded where, we all know the famous, Apple website, you get to see everything's beautiful and, you get to see the different kind of computers. If you went to a Chinese website, that would have 50 computers on it. They would have 50 pictures on it. And you click on the pictures and you go through and you get explanations. It's a much more complicated mechanical process to use a website in Asia or Eastern Asia than it is that we've become accustomed to here. Okay, communication. What language are you going to use to communicate? And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But one of the things you have to recognize is Google Translation is not going to solve your problem on a website in China or in Korea or even in Brazil. The translation just isn't good enough. So you have to really make sure you know how to communicate. And if you make it available for people to speak to you, you got to make it very clear that they got to be able to speak to you in English. If they call you on the phone or they contact you in a way that you have to communicate with them. Mobility. Okay, this is really important. Okay, if you develop a website, okay, your website has to be able to be worked and viewed on a cell phone. Okay, all of us in the US grew up with, first we had these big boxes on our desks, that were computers. And then later we had large laptops, and now we have small, really thin laptops, and we have iPads. That's all great. But as you can see in the picture on the right there, most of the world is actually using phones for their e-commerce activities. All right. So your website has to work on a phone screen. And that's a great picture, one of my favorites. These are teachers in the Philippines, and they're trying to do their lessons, but they actually had to go on the roof of the building because connectivity was so so poor, that to be able to get the good enough connectivity to be able to provide their lessons to their students. Okay, that's something you got to recognize. The internet, the rest of the world is not 5G, okay, as being advertised, not even 4G. I doubt in many places like the Philippines, it's even consistently 3G. Okay, so your website has to be able to work in a less complicated framework, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a second. I talked about product information. You have to be able to provide the right product information. And the things that are really starting to work are what's called visual commerce or immersion technologies. I'm going to see if this will work. Zach, if you can't see this, you tell me, okay? But this is a tool.
Hey, IKEA would like everyone to know about Place.
I can't see that.
Augmented reality app.
You can see it?
No, I can't.
Okay, hold on.
You can easily place 2 to scale 3D models of IKEA furniture in your place.
Okay, you can hear it, but you can't see it, right?
Yes, correct.
Browse. Select. Move. And play.
Okay, let me get that over there. This is I view this as one of the downsides of Zoom. But let's see if I can get this to work. All right. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Can you see it now, Zach?
Yep, all good.
Okay, very good.
Hey, IKEA would like everyone to know about Place, our new augmented reality app. Built on Apple's new AR kit, you can easily place 2 to scale 3D models of IKEA furniture in your place. Scan, browse, select, move, and place. So that could mean less of this. And less of this. And probably more of this. We want to make it easier for people everywhere to imagine a better place. Share this place. And this place. Try Place in your place.
All right, so let me me stop share here and go back to the presentation. There we go. All right, so it's not something you have to have, but if you think back to the things I've talked about, you could see it was workable on a phone. It provided a lot of product information. It can be replicated into various languages. IKEA has already put it in 23 different global languages. So again, this product information issue, learning about the product, understanding it before it gets to them, it really is something that's going to become an important part of international trade, because it solves the problem of making sure that you're going to get what you want, especially if this is a decision they're making between a local product and an imported product into their region. But the starting point for all this is a finely tuned website and social media, and I think that's going to bring us to. Okay, so here's another good example. I'm sorry, I got two more things to do before I get there. So Mercedes went into China about 25 years ago, and they wanted to go in with something that was kind of local. So instead of going in as Mercedes-Benz, they went in with the name of Benzit. Okay, cute, right? Everybody knows the diamond circle. So with the logo and this Benzit name, they really thought that would be a clever way to get into the market. But there was a problem. Let's see here. Benza literally translates in Chinese, rush to die. So who's going to buy a car whose name is rush to die? Okay. It was a bad decision. And again, likely brought on by people who didn't do their homework, didn't understand, didn't do their market research, didn't ask enough questions, just assumed that they could do a literal translation and that would work. Another example, which I really like, is when Gerber went into Ethiopia. And, we all know the Gerber baby on the side of the Gerber bottle. It says very clearly vanilla custard pudding. So you and I would know what it is. But in Ethiopia, one of the things that's interesting is that packaged foods typically have a picture of the product inside. So imagine a mother picking up a jar of Gerber baby food and looking at and seeing the baby. Is she able to read the English vanilla custard pudding? And does she assume there's a baby inside there? Because that's the custom in Ethiopia. So these customs and understanding, what people need and want really require a little bit of work. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the different ways we can do this, though. There are ways to do this, and there are ways to do it very well. Okay, you can use your US-based website and social media in a global environment, and I'll talk about that. You can localize your website, your social media. You can use an e-commerce marketplace, and that's what a lot of people are doing right now. And then last but not least, you can find third-party resellers that can help you go into a region or geography, okay? There's actually infinite number of possibilities. You can do some or all, or you can do different variations on all these things. There's a lot of ways to do it, but these are kind of the four primary ways that I'm going to talk about today. All right, so one of the ways you can go into a global market is you can adapt your US-based website and social media. This, again, not trying to be too fancy, sticking with English, okay? You do overcome a challenge here because English is spoken and read by 1.5 billion people globally, okay? So if you assume the US is 300 million, Canada gives us another 50, about 4 times as many people outside of North America can still speak enough English to be able to effectively buy something from a US-based website or social media, okay? The challenges, though, are a little different, okay? Will it be recognized in a geography? Facebook is not recognized in China. It has limitations in the Middle East. Is the content effective enough to overcome people's, to help people make a proper judgment, as we've been saying? Is it culturally acceptable? Do you have a lot of pictures of people? I'm telling you, if you're marketing the Middle East, you don't want to have a lot of pictures of people. It's just distasteful to them. Censorship. China censors Facebook. If you market on Facebook, you're not going to get a lot of Chinese contacts. Okay. And payment options. You still have to figure that part out. Okay. So, but you can do it, and people do it. All right. People are marketing globally. I have a website that I do a couple things on, and I do get international contacts on my website in English. And then we really get into the question is, can I get the product to them, and is it what they really need? It's the lowest initial investment, but the market is a bit suboptimized in that 1.5 billion is probably 20% of the global population. Okay, but you can do it. All right, you don't have to change anything. You just have to figure out a way of getting yourself into the right social media and website tools to be able to get your website recognized in a region that you'd want to do outside that speaks English. Another way to do it is to localize the website and social media. Okay, this overcomes a lot of things. One, language and regionalisms. You would adjust for culture and buying process, and you would provide the product information that's likely needed. And you customize this to the locale. Okay, so I mentioned language, and I gave my example before, but in there are a lot of people who think that a Google translation is a good translation. It may or may not be. For example, Google translation would translate Arabic from left to right. Arabic is actually read from right to left. There are people in China who do still read things from top to bottom. All right, so there's different things that have to be done. Structuring paragraphs in Korean, for those of you that know anything about Korea, is very strange. Sometimes there are pages of run-on paragraphs, and sometimes they're one line. But Google Translation is not going to help you with that. You'll have to hire somebody who's capable in the language that you're in the region you're going to help you with the transcription. It's not a translation; it is a transcription. Do you know enough about the market to get enough cultural appeal? All right, different social media tools and online tools. Okay, WeChat is very strong in China. Okay, it's very doubtful that in the U.S. you're going to be able to create a effective social media page in WeChat. Right. So how do you work that? Well, I'll talk about some avenues you can do that in a second. Excuse me. Distribution logistics are still a challenge in payment. Okay, it's a much higher cost of entry to do it this way. It's likely more effective, and the thing that I like about it is once you've learned how to do it, you may be able to repeat it. Okay, the picture on the right here is a internet salon, very very common in Vietnam. Vietnam is cell phone usage in Vietnam is growing, but it's not quite as far along as you would have thought. And many people will go to these internet cafes to use the computers. Now, a couple things. One is the internet may not be as capable as it is in the US, 5G. They may be using a public computer, which may have its problems. They may be limited, as you can see on the sign, the different things that are being used. But this is the way that some people may have to do their e-commerce in places like Vietnam. Tony, I got to your slide. Did you want to cover anything else on it, or did you want to take any questions on it?
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, Bill, for jumping out of place for that.
No problem.
Yeah. Just I guess I'll just mention that really this service is sort of like a diagnostics report or a blueprint for you to use to assess your site, evaluate your site. So whether you're a small company, even really large companies are looking at this because they have to periodically and really often actually to do these kind of audits and see how it's performing. And I do want to mention that before looking at all this, just to remember that the search engine optimization is the cornerstone of this whole digital strategy. Other things I didn't mention earlier, I did want to say one thing that Bill was talking about with translations. I think that's such a good point. When opting for Google Translate, you know, the might be a quick fix at the beginning, but you know, for your buyers in the market, if they're seeing this and they're seeing that you're opting for Google Translate, something that's not very marketable, that really shows your investment in that market, shows kind of hinders your reputation that you're building in that market. So it's really important to think through your strategy before carrying that out. That's about it. And then for this service, there is a fee. You see there's a small fee. For small companies, it's $100. For medium, $300, and for large companies, it's $400. Yep, and I think that's everything for this.
Great, Tony. Thank you. Yeah, so that's I just want to make sure that you know we got that out. So there is a fee, and I use the word small because it's $100. You can't hire a local digital assistant to work through these kind of things for probably less than $500, probably approaching $1,000. So you can get all this work, and as Tony pointed out, if you're going into a region, even if you're going in with your current website, understanding how you're going to get your search engine optimization, your SEO, to the top of search lists is really, really important. And this can all be done for $100. What's really nice is in the state of Pennsylvania, that the Pennsylvania Economic and Community Development Association, they have another program, coincidentally also called GAP, where if you have everything you need to know from the International Trade Administration program, so that work gets done, you spend your $100, you can then go to the state for a grant of up to $5,000 of funding to support getting your website localized for specific regions. It's a great process, and again, something that's unique to people in the state of Pennsylvania. All right. I don't know why that keeps doing that. Okay. All right. So we talked about two avenues. One was using your current website, and you can do that. The other one is localizing your website, and that's more expensive, but there are tools available that are not really expensive, and you can get a grant to get that work done. So those are the two avenues I've talked about so far. The third avenue is one that's become very common globally, and that's these e-commerce marketplaces. And I mentioned my wife before. My wife buys costume jewelry locally. You know, these are things like Avon and some of the old designers that she can find at the thrift stores and different places. And then she puts it on a website that she has in China that's handled through a third-party e-commerce company. And she markets there and she sells there. And she ships the product to them and they get it to the client. It's a very nice working process. But most of us on the phone probably are not connected that way. So we'd have to find somebody to do it. And these are the top 12 global e-commerce companies. And, you know, a company like Zalando is European, Mercado Libre is Latin American, B2W Digital is Brazilian, Rakuten, which you saw a lot at Christmas time, is Japanese. And then we have the big four here in the US, Walmart, Facebook, Amazon, and eBay, which are all already globalized. So you could work with a local company in English, and if they cover the region you're looking for, and Amazon is up to, I think, 25 regions now in local language, you could contract with them to be able to sell your product. The issue is it's expensive, and I'll talk about that in a second, okay? But these are product marketing experts, okay? These are people that know how to get into markets or already in markets, or you're piggybacking on their expertise. They can do business to consumer, business to business, and they can do peer-to-peer. They're globally experienced. They can handle payment processing. They can handle warranty and service. They can handle distribution, logistics. Those are all key things that are going to be very tough for a startup to be able to handle properly. So it may be a great way to go. Now, to use one of the global Amazon company or family could cost you up to 20% of your product sale. Okay, and we talked about the fact that affordability is important. Adding that 20% may not work. Okay, if you wanted to get on Alibaba's premier site, it's a membership you have to join. Currently, those memberships are going at about $15,000. So you better be selling a lot of product to be able to close that gap. So it's a great way to go. It has everything you need, but you're going to have to understand the cost. And that's why things like Taobao, which are much lower cost, and Shengua, which is the yellow one with the fish, are much lower cost. They're not as effective, but they may get you what you need. Okay. And I think we're at questions. Okay. Any questions at this point? I love questions. Tony loves questions too. All right. All right. We're running a little long anyway, so I'll move on. We'll catch questions here at the end. Okay. So the last way to go about it is to find a third-party reseller. Okay. These are companies that are in the geography you want to go in, geography or region you want to go in. They're local or they can be global, okay? They can also be US based. You can find a company that's in the US that speaks English, that you can contract with them in US law, which is very important. And they can take your product to the region that you're doing and they do all the work, okay? And the key thing here is they can handle things like distribution and logistics. They may be characterized as a distributor. A distributor is somebody who buys your product from you and then they handle the redistribution. The issue there is, how much energy are they going to put into it? What are they going to charge? Do they undercut? Those kind of things. Agents are people that connect you with clients. And there's even independent sales representatives. I have another business where I do a little bit of independent sales representatives where I basically will introduce a seller to a buyer and help, and just facilitate that transaction. The benefit is that you can leverage their existing websites and online capabilities. So you may not have to spend any money on your website. You can continue doing what you're doing. You're going to be moving over to their capabilities. Okay. They can handle payment processes. They can handle currency. As I said, you can contract with them, hopefully in the US under US law, and they'll, if they're a distributor, they'll handle their warranty and service. All good things. Again, they get a pretty big piece of the pie, and you can lose control. And that's my funny picture here on the right-hand side. For those who don't know, that is Jeff Bezos when he had hair. This was 1996, I believe, when Amazon was just getting started and he was just learning how to sell books online. And you can imagine the thought of finding somebody else to handle all the operational things. A reseller probably made a lot of sense to him. Had he done that, Amazon would not be the company it is today because he possibly would have lost control of the transaction and somebody else would have developed the tool, or not, right? Or not. That's the other side of it. So it's a very good point. Is you're going to get to a point in your company where you have to say to yourself, do I want to do this myself or do I want to find somebody else? I have a client. They have developed a very interesting beverage product. And their original intent was that they were going to take it all the way to retail. We've done a lot of research together. And what we've learned is taking a beverage product to retail is very difficult. So now they are using a reseller, or they're trying to work with a reseller. They haven't contracted yet, who is going to take the product from their manufacturing and they're going to do the retail end and they'll get a cut. And we think that's a better avenue because the client has other responsibilities, or a father, they have a job, they have other things they have to worry about, obviously. And so a reseller makes sense. So There are times when a reseller makes sense and times when a reseller doesn't make sense. And I just did a presentation on resellers in November. And if anybody wants that presentation, let me know and I'll get that off to you. All right, a couple more usage and we'll wrap up here. But marketing, customs paperwork. Funny note here on the side from JP Morgan. A lot of customs and global transactional paperwork is still being done on paper, but quickly, very, very quickly, that's all getting moved over to the internet. All your banking, even international banking, can be done on the internet. All your distribution logistics companies will want to do business on the internet. Communications and feedback can be done more effectively on the internet, and hiring. So there's a lot of things that the internet can be used for, even if you're not, even if you have the marketing side worked out, you can still, sales and marketing side worked out, you can still use the internet for these other things. So it's quickly changing the world of international trade, and hopefully all that paper will eventually be obsolete, and we'll just be doing everything electronically. All right, so kind of my summary slide here. Global trade via the internet offers a tremendous business opportunity to business owners, but most business owners are not pursuing this opportunity, okay? If you're interested, we'd love to talk to you, because I believe this can be done by everybody. It really is going to depend on your product. That's really the most important thing, and the region you want to go to. But to do it, you got to do a couple things. You got to make sure you're committed. I once had when I worked in my corporate life, I was asked to do a small project, was asked to put together a strategy, and I pulled it together and I went to management. I said, look, I need about $500,000 to do this. I need about 6 months, and we could have something going. And they came back and said, what could you do for $25,000 in 3 weeks? And the answer was, I can't do it. And that's the same for you. You have to be committed, right? There's going to be things along the way. You're going to have to make adjustments. You can't get frustrated. You got to stay focused. But if you're committed, you can make this work. You got to know your product. And I highly suggest, if you're looking at a specific region, you do the market research, and it is available free to you through the SBDC network. Choose an internet channel to enter the market or region. Again, a little bit of research has to be done on that. Or find partners or advisors to help you with logistics, marketing support, and can advise you on how best to do it. And when you've got to that point and you're ready to move forward, write a plan first. Creating a written plan is an important part of any international trade situation. You got to know what you're going to. You have to plan it out, and whether it be the U.S. Commerce Service or whether it be Widener or any of our affiliates, we're here to help you with getting that plan done. All right, so I'm a little bit over. I'm sorry about that, but I hope you found it interesting. And we're at the point today. Here's the contact information for myself and for Tony. Everybody will be receiving a copy of the presentation, so you'll have this information, and also a copy of the actual video of the presentation. So you'll have, you can watch this again if you choose to, or share it with somebody that you think would benefit. We're here to help, and I'd love to take more questions. Zach, can you see that question?
Yep. You have a long one here. It's from Francine. She said, I am developing a mobile phone game and developing a website. The game will be available both on Google and Apple Play stores, and we have interest from skills.com around featuring the game on their platform. We have also had interest from licensing industry around developing products based on our game characters and story. We need further help with developing the website. We anticipate eventually connecting to a platform such as printful.com to enable consumer sales via the website. We also hope to be connected with manufacturers in the future via Brainbase who may be interested in using our IP on products such as apparel, t-shirts, and toys. Would this type of initiative be considered for the website globalization review gap analysis? We really need help in updating our site prior to our mobile game launch. We are working with the marketing group, however, their costs are high. I am a woman bootstrapping this initiative. I was working with George Sluke of the SBDC several years ago who helped me.
All right. Well, now you're going to work with me because George retired, but I'm more than happy to help you with that. But Tony, there's two things there that I think you could talk about. One is, answer the question about the website globalization, but also the Gold Key program.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Absolutely. So it sounds like we can help. I do want to ask more on what kind of updates you're needing to the site prior to your game launch. But it sounds like you're moving forward nicely. And just to mention the WGR gap analysis. So it's looking at once the site is live, and we're looking at the internationalized, whether it is internationalized, and then if there's any SEO issues. But it sounds like you're also needing to then take this. So the plan is to take this diagnostics report and take it to those e-commerce service providers, the technical professionals, to help you build that out. And if you're saying that this company might be too pricey, I would also look at other e-commerce providers, maybe shop around as well, and go from there.
Great. And then what about Gold Key? How would Gold Key help them connect with people that may be interested in licensing their IP?
So our Gold Key program is it's depending on the country right now, because we're still offering virtual services. But for countries that are open to travel, you would the idea is you would travel to the country and meet with up to 5 potential partners that can help you market and sell in the country. So we would work with you to understand what your strategy is for the market, what kind of profile you're looking for in a partner, and the local specialist will help you to seek out those partners and vet and connect you with them. And that's where you would travel to the country for those meetings. The specialist would brief you and guide you through those meetings. So it's a really great setup when you're going in and trying to understand how to get in the market.
And this professional is someone situated locally in the country or region, right?
Correct. Excuse me. Correct. Yeah. So they kind of similar to us. They're segmented by industry sectors. So there's be someone that's covering information and communication technology, someone covering healthcare, and they would know all of the the key government players, private sector, distributors, agents, and come up with the strategy that makes sense for you.
Very good. All right, great. And then of course, like I said, we could have a session. I'm kind of picking up some of George's stuff from others. So if you want to contact me, we can have a session and sit down and kind of go through it, break it down. And there's 4 or 5 pieces there, the way I heard the question, that need to be worked, and we can kind of get you set up and in contact with the right people to help you. So I'm more than happy to work with you on that and get to the point where you actually have a plan that you're comfortable with and is moving you forward. All right, go ahead, Zach. For some reason the Q&A won't open for me.
Oh, good. She just said thank you very much. She'll follow you up with you to schedule a session.
Great. All right, other questions? If you raise your hand, I'll turn on your microphone, and you can even ask it if you want to. All right. Patel, go ahead. You got to turn your microphone on though. There you go. Patel, you're online. Are you speaking? can't hear you, Patel. I don't know why. Can anybody else? Zach, can you hear Patel?
Okay.
There
Can
you
you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. So, first of all, thank you for excellent presentations. It helps a great deal. I'm going back to your favorite slide with 4 stages, and it helps succinctly understand the aspects. So, as part of my startup I'm contemplating, and I'll be taking time with more details with you personally. Uh, I'm looking at some herbal products or botanical preparations and locating different suppliers, etc. At the same time, and fortunately for me, that FDA announced a requirement that will start from next year on to have a verifiable location, supplier, etc., and they will be inspected at times, so forth, just like a lot of pharma ingredients. Now, there's a gap. Uh, Now, I have to kind of introduce these things to potential supplier who is not even thinking about anything like this, may not be aware of it. Do we have any intermediary transition between FDA and import-export type communication assistance? Because then I can link them with, for example, I'm looking at India. So FDA tells me that we have locations and contractors there to work on their behalf, but I have no idea who to ask in FDA about details, and I don't know whether local folks, suppliers, could connect with them to understand better. I think we have more convenience between the US FDA and US operators, but not the same in other countries. So that's one. And there's interdependence there. The second part is the I tried to talk with some of the suppliers, and they have very nice website, just like you mentioned, the form, and I fill out. The moment I fill out, and even though I ask general early questions, next thing they ask is, "So what do you want and how much?" And they keep at it constantly. So I tried to even explain by conversation, but I don't know, these may be their employees who have pressure to sell. So they don't pay attention to what I'm asking unless I go there and spend time, which I can do, but not in the current times of limitation. So I'm trying to navigate through all this. And your advice I would appreciate.
Okay. I'll take some of this, and Tony, I may need some help here. So the first part on the FDA, you are correct, right? I covered this on my distribution channels presentation, but I don't have it here. But you are correct. The governmental regulations, I think I said it early on, the governmental regulations are different in every country. And just because you meet FDA requirements here, you may not meet FDA requirements in other countries. And right now, obviously, with the trade disputes with China, that's even become even more difficult.
Yes.
They're passing rules every single day that make it more difficult to take stuff from the U.S. to China, which historically had. So you're right. The FDA requirements have to be understood, especially if it's something that someone's going to be consuming or applying to their bodies. So yes, we'll have to help you get something lined up there. Tony, do you know if through Gold Key or through another program, if those kind of contacts can be created?
Yeah, for something like that, we can just go directly, not necessary to go through a service, and go directly through to the local specialist and ask them for information on this and how to comply. The only issue I would think is, it sounds like it's since you're working with suppliers, you're importing, right? And so there might be limited as to how we can help, but perhaps we can connect you with the right folks who can explain the market regulations.
All right. So yeah, I guess I'm confused with Patel. Are you exporting or importing?
I will I'll be importing in the beginning.
Okay, you'll be importing. Okay, so you'll be importing. Okay, so the U.S. FDA, yes, I can help with making you contact through the government contracting arm of is a PTAC arm. I can get you connections there if this is a U.S. FDA matter.
Yes,
If it
that
was,
that will help.
okay, if it was India FDA, then again that's what Tony was talking
No,
about.
but they can direct me further. So right people, and I don't want to bother in general, like general number and all that. So if it is pointed to the right person, it's a lot easier. I don't
Yeah.
waste anybody's time.
Yeah. So then your second point is a really good one. In today's world with COVID, it has become a very big challenge to get just about anything done outside the shores, right? So what I would say is let's get on the phone and let's kind of
Yes.
work out a plan. And I have a lot of ideas. I've done a lot of importing, exporting globally. I've built things on every continent except Africa. So I'm very familiar with what you're talking about, and there's a lot of hands out there that want to get involved. And my only advice on something like that would be, it would be great if you could, even if it was a little bit more expensive, if you could find a company that's already established in the U.S. that could handle the transaction for you. That would, that tends to make things a little easier. Then you don't have to guess about who's being sincere and who's not. That's easy.
Okay. Yes, I'll follow up on that. The other question is, uh, I will be writing to you the details in an email directly, so you will be able to focus
Okay.
and sort out, and maybe I'll think better with that advice.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
second part with that, is there any template or sample plans, or how do I start with the plan?
Absolutely. I will get that
Mm.
off to you. I will get
Perfect.
I'll
Thank
send
you.
it to everybody. I'll send it to everybody. So send out the plan template. Okay. I will make sure you get that.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm happy to say that's coming from our good friends at the Commerce Service in Philadelphia. They have on
Yes.
right on their website, so it should be helpful to you. All right, so we got a couple in the chats here. Okay, so John, yeah, I'll get you that template. That's great. Yeah, Kay, Tony, Kay's one of my clients, and we've been working on a couple of things. So, who should she contact at the Commerce, Commerce Service for her website to kick off her website work?
I'm happy, Kay. I'm happy to speak with you. But I guess it would depend on what industry sector you fall under, because there's 4 other trade specialists in our office, and that's how we are organized. But if you're just kind of looking as to looking at whether this service is right fit for you, or just trying to understand, I'm happy to talk to you first about that.
And I know Kay's situation, it would be a very interesting discussion. It's a great product. Great product. Very novel. All right, other questions? All right, going once, twice. All right. Well, we'll wrap this up. Tony, thank you very much for joining us and providing your guidance and assistance here. Everyone, I hope that you enjoyed the discussion. I will be getting out both the presentation and the video if you want to watch it again. And have a great week. And anybody who is interested in even talking about this, I'd love to sit down and go through your idea and what you think will work, and we'll see if we can't get some things done for you. All right. Have a wonderful day, everybody. We'll talk to you later.